Some new details from Dallas police on tracking down a suspected rapist. Our Rebecca Lopez has been following the case of Dralon Patterson. And
Dralon Patterson to at least 2 sexual assaults through DNA, and they are looking at him in other cases.
Mother, and she told you that he had told her the DNA would clear him.
Yeah, and she really believes that. You know, he told her that the DNA would clear him. His family says that it was not the man. This is not the man that they know. They say he was working on his master's degree and is a dedicated husband and father, but DPD paints a very different picture of a predator that they say his DNA against.
He is sitting in jail accused of raping a woman in Uptown Dallas. But tonight, Dralon Patterson says he is innocent and that DNA will prove it. News 8's Rebecca Lopez is live at DPD headquarters where detectives say evidence proves otherwise. Rebecca?
Weapon. The suspect's family says they don't believe it's him. They say he is a family man with children. Dorothy Patterson says she was shocked when she got the call that her son Dralon had been arrested and suspected of rape.
I'm having difficulties processing all of this. It's very hard as a mother who's raised her child to be respectful.
Dallas police. She says he is married to his childhood sweetheart and is a family man.
They went through junior high, high school, junior college, college. Both of them are degreed, have 2 beautiful children.
DNA results. His mother says they are waiting for that too.
He says, "Mom, it's gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. DNA doesn't lie. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. I'm okay. Just let my wife know I love her. I'm okay."
His family adamantly defends him, but the evidence continues to mount.
Good afternoon. I am Reverend Danielle Ayers, and I currently serve as the pastor of Justice at Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, where the Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III is the senior pastor and is also the president and CEO of Rainbow Push Coalition. Over the years, we have worked with exonerated men who have been through this criminal injustice process, and we understand the serious nature of making sure that the person is incarcerated based on facts, credible testimony, and evidence, not just assumptions and prejudices. Dallas County in particular has a troubling history of wrongful convictions, especially when it comes to black men. You may recall over 20 men who were exonerated under the tenure of DA Craig Watkins, and this is deeply concerning for us as it was then, as it is now. These issues are very important to us, and it demands our attention and our action. It is clear that the criminal justice system has many flaws that need to be addressed. One of the most significant problems is the tendency to rush to judgment without proper investigation and evidence. This can lead to wrongful convictions, destroying the lives and causing great harm to families and communities. We have to also advocate for criminal justice reform at the state level as well. And we believe Attorney Bradrick J is taking an important step to make sure that Dralon Patterson receives the justice that he is due and that he deserves.
All right. Now, first of all, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Pamela Grayson, founder, executive director of Collective Activism, Incorporated. We're a social justice organization that promotes accuracy for everybody. Chaplain Emmanuel.
Thank you, citations. Thank you very much. My name is Chaplain Emmanuel Hamaya. I have worked with federal, state, and county level chaplaincy work in the area of consultation for inmates, clergy consultation, re-entry services, and Christian curriculum. I also work with school districts as a consultant for recalcitrant, at-risk youth with curriculum to help their behavior. I am here to represent my client and his counseling as a clergy member. He has requested my counseling. Unfortunately, when he requested my counseling as he was detained at Dallas County New Sterrett, I was not able to see him due to situations out of my control that I did not agree with. I was told that I had to be his personal pastor of his local assembly in order to see him at Dallas County New Sterrett, which I found to be appalling and absurd. In 20 plus years of chaplaincy work, I've never been told that ever. And I had to wait until Dralon Patterson was then shipped to the Wainwright Unit, TDCJ, before I was able to see him in clergy consultation. And my assessment of Dralon was he is a docile temperament person. He is also one who cares about people. While incarcerated at the Wainwright Unit, he's been tutoring inmates with his academia, intelligentsia. He has used that to help other people while incarcerated. This is the kind of man he is, and he wants justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chaplain. The key things I want you to take from that. Dralon is educated. He's using his academic skills to help others, even while he's going. Attorney Bradrick Collins, Dralon's attorney.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming down and participating in this activism to free my client, Mr. Dralon Patterson. I was not Mr. Patterson's trial attorney. I was contacted and retained by him to represent him on appeal. And as you know, Mr. Patterson was presented by the state as a serial rapist. And on appeal, digging deep into the facts of the case, I discovered that Mr. Patterson is not a serial rapist, but a man who had been engaged in prostitution for over 10 years here in Dallas County. And this is no secret to no one. I had an opportunity to cross-examine his investigator that worked on the case, and she informed the court that everyone knew, his attorney knew, the state prosecution knew, that Dralon Patterson was a man who engaged in prostitution. And so Mr. Patterson is sitting in prison today because he was painted as a serial rapist. Many of the victims who had made allegations against Mr. Patterson was not present at his trial. He never had the opportunity to cross-examine these people. Detective Holmes here in Dallas had informed the jury that two other people, that was DNA, that Patterson had raped two other individuals. And that DNA wasn't before the court, neither were those people. And so this man is sitting in prison on a life sentence, accused of raping people he never got the opportunity to even confront. Our judicial system is way better than that. Common sense dictates that it is. His defense attorney did not cross-examine the victim, the alleged victim who he was supposed to have raped. Mr. Patterson made statements that he had never seen this person. The defensive theory of the case was consent, when a lady is saying that she was raped at gunpoint. So we're not here to discount anyone else's being a victim. We're not saying that the person wasn't raped. We're just simply saying Mr. Patterson didn't do it. Now, there was some point during this investigation that the state obtained a penile swab of Mr. Patterson. That was to get some DNA from him to determine if his DNA was found inside the alleged victim, and vice versa. And I discovered that the results of that test was never admitted into evidence. And that was very concerning to me, because that's the smoking gun. The state believed that they could determine within 24 hours, get a DNA test within 24 hours, they could determine if Patterson actually was the assailant. And turns out the DNA results shows that he wasn't the assailant. But let me be very, very clear on that. There was no evidence of pattern DNA inside the victim, and there was no evidence of the victim inside Patterson. So why is he in prison? Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And there's no law against, it's not unconstitutional, I should say, to have an all-white jury. I don't complain about these things. I'm not saying that an all-white jury can't be fair and impartial. But here's what's disturbing to me. There was 14 potential black jurors here in Dallas County. None of them made the cut. Even when asked if they understood DNA, I remember there was a teacher, she said she understood DNA very well. She was cut. And even though it's not unconstitutional, what we know about implicit bias and what people used to call racism and prejudice, there's something very wrong with having an all-white jury anywhere in the nation. Any questions about this, about the case? Anybody questions? Yes.
I got a question. So when the jury is being chosen, they have the right to do a Batson?
That's correct.
Batson.
Batson challenge. If you feel that you have a jury that's been picked, a jury that's been picked to convict, organized to convict is the way we like to say it. If you feel like there's a jury chosen to organize to convict, you can challenge that jury based on race. But that didn't happen in Patterson's case.
Do we know why?
No, I do not. But I know that it's up to your defense attorney to raise that challenge.
What about the description of the assailant?
Yes, very good question. I discovered through looking through the evidence that there were 2 other people in the garage that night who witnessed this thing. When I say this thing, witnessed some events in that garage where Patterson was accused of having raped the victim. And they seen this victim having conversation with another male. And they observed for quite some time. Dallas police officers even got an opportunity to interview these witnesses, what I refer to in my brief as ear and eye witnesses. And they identified every race of person in that garage except a black male. They specifically excluded a black male. Patterson was a black man. So why wasn't they called as witnesses?
Next question. I was at the trial, and I just want to ask this question. I really don't know law because I'm not a lawyer, but I want to know, how important is it to cross-examine someone accusing someone of something?
It's extremely important, especially in the facts of this case. Recall, your defensive theory is you want to convince a jury that this was not a rape, but consent. Wouldn't you want to hear from both parties? Right? I would cross-examine and say, wait a minute, did you not consent to this? Right? I want to know something about the victim. I want to know what time she was raped. Right? And so I want to make sure her facts are straight. Especially when I know that my client has been engaged in prostitution for over a decade. I'm looking through the evidence, and the night before he was arrested, he got a text from one of the ladies that he was contracting with, and she says, "You're done for. We got your DNA." Those are the kind of things that raises eyebrows, right? And so Patterson is a man who was engaged in high-dollar prostitution. I said prostitution, didn't I? High-dollar prostitution at approximately $350 an hour. He's a working man, can't afford that. And so when he couldn't pay, he jetted out on these women, left, and they would call and report a rape. Digging through the files, even one of the person who cried rape said she didn't want nothing else to do with the case because the investigation was leading to her sexual-oriented business. Okay, and so there's no reason why the people who accused him of rape should not have been at trial. And it's very unethical, in my opinion, to give a man a life sentence based on hearsay and based on speculation. What jury would do that? But that happened here in Dallas County, right? And so when you got facts coming out that inflaming jurors, you're using medical records, documents from people who are not even present, and they are recounting a sexual assault to a jury, that does nothing but inflame people. That's all that do. But those people should have been there and should have been questioned about what actually happened that night. But they left, didn't want anything to do with this prosecution because they didn't want the gun to lead back to them. They didn't want the trail to lead back to them, that is. And that's to show they're a sexual orientated people. Now, here's the reason I keep saying gun, because it was thrown around about 30-something times. There was an expert who testified that there's a such thing as transfer DNA. And that when Patterson allegedly raped this person, when his grown folks here, his penis went inside her vagina, and he brings it out and he touches penis, that puts her DNA on his fingers. And when he touches the gun, that's gonna leave prints on the trigger. Testified and told all that to a jury. The problem is the person who did the fingerprinting had already testified the day before, and she said that she found no fingerprints on the gun. It's kind of stuff that's just downright wrong. It's into my gut now that I really talk about it. And so Patterson is sitting in prison on a life sentence because he was engaged in illegal contracting. Prostitution is illegal in Texas, and he shortchanged women on his money. He's not a serial rapist. He's everything that he said he was in the beginning.
Okay, but since you're his attorney and you've read the transcript, according to the news reports, it said that there was a gun on him. Did they, in the transcript, did they ever say that they actually found the gun on Patterson?
They said they found the gun near his car. Okay, I think they painted a story somewhere along the line that he ran when they came after him. And I'm glad you brought that up. I don't want to spend too much time on talking about that gun, but I do want to talk about the way he was arrested. Okay, so he goes downtown to meet another prostitute. Is what he's going for. And there's a code word that you use that says Club Bay. And he walks up and he taps on the window and he says, "Have you ever heard of Club Bay?" Now, where the rape went down was at an apartment complex called the Appellate Quadrangle. Okay, and it's no longer standing now in the shape and form that it was then. But word on the street is you go down there into the basement to the garage of that complex, and that forms what is called Club Bay because it opens up like a bay. So getting back to that incident where he asked the woman, "Had you heard of Club Bay?" She says no. She gets out of her car and she proceeds to walk to an apartment complex where she has about 2 friends waiting. And she recalls the incident. She says, "A man just walked up to me and asked me if I knew Club Bay." And they say to her, "Well, describe it." And she starts describing what she says, Dralon Patterson. She described Dralon Patterson to his T based on the testimony of her friends who said, "Well, we just saw him on the news." Ayers, you're a gorgeous woman. I know if I approach you, you're going to forget me in 2 seconds. Better yet, describe me all the way down to the T.
Right.
So I found that very, very concerning, right? How perfect. And then that's when he gets taken to jail. So when I start thinking about, we got your DNA, right? And I start thinking about the interaction that he had subsequent that last event that led to his arrest, I feel like some people set him up. And when I look into the backgrounds of these alleged victims, and there were many others whom the state chose not to bring into this investigation, right? And I can't say what the names are and what the situation was around that, but from what I understand, these were all called. Okay? This is not your drag a woman behind the bush, knock in the head, rape kind of deal. But that shows you how effective the media is, which is another point I want to get to in Dallas County, is that there's some responsibility in the media. You don't simply believe everything somebody tells you. Whatever happened to checking?
Investigative reporting.
I mean, the slightest investigation would have revealed that Mr. Patterson was hooked on prostitution. I didn't say prosecution that time, did I?
Right.
He was hooked on prostitution, right? And so that should have made known. And we should have drilled the alleged victim very hard on cross-examination about who she is, what she worked, what she do, how she come in contact with Mr. Patterson. Questions?
Yes. In reading through the transcript, there was paperwork from a company that no longer exists.
That is correct.
That's
correct. And so in the legal world, we have what we call business records.
Mm-hmm.
And these are records from, say, for example, the hospital in this case. And it comes with an affidavit. You swear up and down that every document here is legitimate, accurate, and a part of your record. And according to the affidavit, there was no other documents from any other entity that was a part of those records. When I go through those records, I find some documents from a company called OB Associates, a company that has been out of business since the 90s. And so why are they there, right? Why are those documents a part of a saying that is a sexual assault nurse examination kit? And why are some of the documents have whiteout and things of that nature and appear to me, in my professional opinion, to be recycled? In my professional opinion, don't even have the updated font from Microsoft, what I call ancient Times Romans instead of New Times Romans, right? And so there's a lot of hanky-panky, shaky things. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered. There are a lot of things to be desired. You understand what I'm saying? And so we got these business records from companies that's not in existence. We got women who are not even there who said Patterson raped them. And a jury get to hear all of this. We got 14 black people get kicked to the curb off the jury or put in positions guaranteed not to get picked, the kind of stuff that you hear about in Dallas County for the last 35, 40 years. And so nothing's changed from that perspective, right? And so, and they're hearing these inflammatory remarks about a great educated white lady, right? Who is just trying to make it home, and she get attacked by a serial rapist who done rape other women. Yes, he gonna get life. That's what he's gonna get. He's gonna get life. But I'm here to make sure that he get a fair trial.
There's a question back here.
Yeah.
In your opinion, do you believe that Dallas County has a habitual problem doing judicial drive-bys on minorities that are financially embarrassed?
I think that the system is doing a drive-by on anybody that's financially embarrassed.
Mainly,
whether you're black,
minorities.
white, or whatever. I think that Dallas County, I know that Dallas County has a horrible reputation across the nation for wrongful conviction. That's not a secret. That's a fact. It's not. That's not my opinion. Okay, we can talk all day about why that's the case, but surely when you are black and poor in America, it's hard to get
It's
justice.
better to be
When
rich
you are
and
white
guilty.
and poor in America, it's hard to get justice. You understand that? And so it's unfortunately that we have to come to times of this where we have to rely on social media and advocate on behalf of people when we got the greatest judicial system in the world, man, when it works. When it works. And it's just too uncommon now for defendants to be pitching their cases to the media with the hopes of getting justice when we have elected officials whose job is to do just that.
One of the things that we had looked at, me and Dorothy, when we checked out the scene, was there was cameras all over that area. Were there ever any video evidence that placed him there at a certain time when this so-called alleged incident occurred?
I haven't reviewed that. The question was there any evidence, video evidence? Now, here's what hurt Mr. Patterson with his uncertainty. And they were asking him about the identity of the victim and him being there. Remind you, this is a man who engages in prostitution, right? He done been a lot of places, right? And they got a track record, paper trail, of where this guy has been doing this for quite some time in his part-time job, where he had a position where he was transporting the public. I won't say from which company, that's not important. But even in that, he was seeking opportunity to engage in prostitution. That's a fact. Questions?
Because I don't know law, right? But being his mother and they're at the trial, they kept trying to make him take a plea deal. And how important is it for people not to take a plea deal and go to trial? What Dralon told me, he said, Mom, I'm not taking a plea deal. First of all, for something I did not do.
Right.
But if I take a plea deal, then anything that I need for the appeal process.
I understand your question.
Okay.
I understand your question. Well, over 97 percentile ends in plea deals. You got a lot of innocent people who plead guilty all the time. It goes back to the question of financial ability, right? And so you're faced with a charge, run the risk of going to prison for 20 years. You never did anything in your life. Can you do deferred adjudication for 5 years to where you don't go to jail? Well, you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't do any crime anyways. I can make it another 5 years. And so people enter into plea agreements for a number of reasons. And all the time, I can tell you as a defense attorney that I've had clients who are innocent, I believe are innocent, but they didn't want to put themselves through a trial. Couldn't afford it, right? And even in court appointments, it's not about the money, it's about your mental ability to sustain something like that and run the risk of getting in the hands of some jurors who's not going to be sympathetic to your cause and take you away from your family.
Can you explain to the community what the long-term impact is of accepting the plea agreement?
You give up your right to an appeal in most cases. that means is that you can't come back and challenge that case on appeal. And you've entered conclusively that you're guilty. And so appellate attorneys like myself review the record to see if there's any way that we can, get around the whole guilty thing. And that's very difficult to do in these cases.
So that leaves a very daunting task that a person has to choose between taking a plea deal and being convicted of felon or whatnot, or taking the risk of fighting it, then get convicted on with fabricated evidence or lack of evidence, and then have to wait years before an appeal comes through, because a lot of people can't even get an appeal because the system is so overcrowded.
I should have just gave you the mic. Very well said.
And then it's a stacked jury.
Exactly.
Did he have a paid attorney, or did he have a court-appointed railroad specialist?
I'll answer.
Again, that's a question that you're going to have to ask the people that were there. I don't know how his defense team was hired and paid. That's not something I'm going to comment on.
Is it normal for what's the normal range of punishment for someone who's never been convicted of anything?
It's not life.
Oh, okay. How important is it for? Well, I read the transcript myself, and there were some things that I didn't know what was going on.
Let me guess. The range of punishment and how it relates to parole. Okay. So jurors are not allowed to consider the impact of parole during the sentencing process, because what parole allows you to do is get out of prison early, right? And in Patterson case, the juror was considering parole, something our legislatures don't allow. How I know? Because they wrote a note to the court. And they asked, what's the difference between life sentence versus 99 years? Well, his defense team had already told the jurors that, well, if you give Patterson 20 years, for instance, his file won't get dusted off by another first for 10 years having served half of his sentence, right? In the minds of an inflamed juror, they're looking at, if we give this guy 50 years, you're telling me he's going to be out in 25? If we give this guy 90 years, you're telling me he's going to be out in 45? These people are so inflamed, they wanted to make sure that he don't even get the benefit of parole, and they gave him life. That means they were thinking about parole when they gave him life. Right? We don't want you out. You're a serial rapist. You don't rape probably 7 women, 2 others we don't heard you rape. We got to get justice for them too. Right? No DNA in evidence. Nobody here to point a finger saying it was Patterson, other than Detective Holmes, who admitted at trial he didn't even participate in that investigation. But he knows there's DNA linking Patterson to 2 other rapes. Why say that? Questions?
Well, do they have to be, are they experts, these people that do all of this stuff?
Well, what's it?
Like DNA that...
Yeah, should be experts.
Okay.
And I had some issue with one of the fingerprinting people that were used. That person did not meet the statutory requirements, and that's talked about in the brief, right? But fortunately, the person did say she didn't fingerprint the gun. She didn't find any fingerprints on the gun.
How is it possible that they could get away with so many blank? How is it possible that they can get away with so much blank disregards in a law like that with the legal system when they're supposed to be evidence? How is it possible that they can actually cover up something like this with a DNA company that does not exist and saying that it's DNA? But they say they send it off to a lab that don't even exist. How is that possible?
Let me answer the question without saying how it's not possible. Well, what you do is you get yourself a defense attorney like myself that's going to overturn every stone in your case and going to raise every question in your case and going to make the state fight and prove your case. That's how you avoid it. You got a 6th Amendment right to effective assistance of counsel. So you got to be very careful about who you choose as your defense attorney. We go by the apex predator, that's me. You see me fighting a bear like Willie Gary say, throw some honey on me. I'm going to make sure that they prove their case. I'm going to ask every single question I'm going to challenge every document, just like I did on appeal. So that's how you avoid that happening. Is you get competent representation. People who don't mind fighting. Listen, the issue with Patterson's indictment is, I recall, it didn't plead the use of a deadly weapon. And when the state doesn't plead the use of a deadly weapon, that shouldn't be taken into consideration in the punishment stage. Because when you use a deadly weapon in an instance like that, that makes your crime more severe and the punishment more severe. And the word gun got thrown around so many times, but it was never pled by the state. That should not happen. I would have made all kinds of objections to that.
Well, there were none made.
None. That's correct. None made.
This is one case out of millions, right? Just one that got exposure to. I'm pretty sure that if they're doing this, I mean, we already know it's a repetitive cycle in Dallas County to railroad people to certain situations, especially inmates that are indigent, and especially the impartiality of minorities versus people with money.
I understand that's your position, and I respect your position.
So, as Dralon's appellate attorney, what would you say to Dallas County with all of this stuff that you've unfolded? And I don't know the process of waiting, but me as his mother, I've been waiting a long time. And before you came along, reading the transcript myself, I, being a layman, could see some stuff that just didn't make good sense.
What is it? Would you film me for a few seconds? Just like 10 seconds.
Let me identify who Dallas County is. This is what I would say to Dallas County, and people of Dallas County, is that we got to get involved, and we got to hold our leaders accountable, and we got to protect our young men and young women from wrongful convictions, and we got to make sure that everybody gets justice and not taking advantage of it. And I wasn't here when Craig Watkins created the Innocence Project, Integrity Conviction Program, I believe it's called. But that was a great model. It was modeled all over the country. And from what I understand today, it's not as effective as it once was. And so as citizens, we got to revamp things of that nature, right? And we got to stand up for our young people. And we got to stand behind our children and make the state prove their case. We shouldn't be so quick as parents to condemn our own children just because the police say they did something.
That's right.
We shouldn't be so quick to call the police on our own sons, thinking that we're doing them a favor.
Right.
These people are not looking out for your children's best interests. They just using you. That's all. And so you need to get to the bottom of things and wake up. This is a different generation. Times have changed now. And people have rights, and you got to assert those rights, and you got to want to protect them. And you got to do that as a movement sometimes, as a family sometimes. Don't be so quick to give your child up to the system. I don't know where we get that kind of thinking from anyway.
Yep, thank you.
But anyways,
All
next
right, we
question.
want to thank Attorney Collins, and now we're going to bring up Dralon's mother. Oh. Dralon's mom.
Yes.
The strongest, one of the strongest women I know. Sister Dorothy Patterson.
Yes.
Well, let me just say, I agree with what Mr. Collins just said. Sitting through that trial, I was just like, oh my God, this cannot be real. I'm not a lawyer, nor do I know much about the law. But it didn't take a lot for me to know that the law was not being applied as I sat through that trial. I stand here as a woman who believes that every woman has a right to walk the streets safely. And when my son was alleged to be the Dallas Uptown serial rapist, it blew my mind. And I say alleged because I could not believe what I had just heard. So as a woman, first, I began to look around and see my son's history of being who I knew him to be. It just didn't add up. So as his mother, I started making sure that I do my homework. Not to excuse his behavior by any means, but to understand that he is still my child. And if they allege this is something that he did, then I wanted him to get fair punishment. Justice must be served regardless if it's your child or not. So as his mother, I began to seek legal counsel because they had arrested him. And after February the 2nd, I hadn't seen him anymore on this side of the concrete. They set his bail so high that it was impossible to afford it. As I sought out attorneys, I started asking them, doesn't one of the amendments, I believe it is the 6th Amendment, where bail should not be set so high that one cannot afford it? $753,388 is way beyond my pay grade. So he had to sit there. Fast forward, after the trial, I was yet determined. I went to my son, I said, son, let me tell you, I'm the only one that's gonna stick by you to the end. If you lie to me, I'm going to walk away just like everyone else has. My son said, Mom, I did not rape anyone. And they may as well give me life, because I'm not taking a plea deal for something I did not do. When my son looked at me in my eyes and said that to me, as a mother, I have never been one to be in denial about my children. I knew he was telling me the truth. So I sat out to say, okay. The way I met Mr. Collins was just by favor. I came down here to file his paperwork because Dallas County got to the point when it came to Dralon Patterson's case, his paperwork wouldn't get filed. It would be thrown somewhere, I don't know what would happen to it. So we made it our business to make sure if you made one copy, you make me a copy, send it to me, and I'll make sure it gets filed. It gets filed. People understand, I want to help you as women know that I am out here to make sure you are safe. But then as a mother, I'm out here to tell other mothers how to make sure your child receives fair justice in Dallas County. I'm not here trying to get somebody off for something that they did. I'm here trying to get somebody off for something they did not do according to what has been proven by the apex predator, Attorney Cauuse. So when you get a conviction, mothers, fathers, I'm the mother, the aunt, the whoever don't have me, make sure you do your motion for new trial within 30 days. That is what preserves the evidence. That is the only reason why Dralon and I are in this position right now. If you do not do that, you may as well throw in the hat. Because then you're going to have a loved one sitting there for 30 years, although he's innocent. The second thing I will say, you got to turn a deaf ear to fear. Because people are going to get in your ear. Family members especially will tell you to, well, they got life. Let them go on and do what they got to do. But just 3 years previous to that, they were standing up, rah, 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 and he was the best thing since sliced bread, peanut butter, and jelly. But once the road gets tough, they all got going. Mothers, if you know your children, stick by your child. Trust, and I don't know who you trust, but I trusted God. And trust God's process. His timing works well. Although Mr. Collins never met me, But when I came down to Lou Sterrett to go up there and look for his new appellate attorney, I said, Father, I cannot go through this here public defender stuff ever again. And when you have a public defender come to you as a mother and tell your son to take the plea deal. You're supposed to be defending my son. Have you looked at the paperwork? Have you done anything? Well, they're going to give him life. Well, how do you know they're going to give him life? You're the attorney. But nonetheless, let me not get started, because I mean, I can go on and on about the horror that I've had to experience. But nonetheless, make sure if your child says they did not do it and you know your child, you trust your child, you trust the process, and do not give up. Because that is what they do, and they drag it on so long. To have to watch my grandchildren ask, when is daddy coming home? That's painful. Especially, I know what they say, and I know what he was doing as far as prostitution goes, but one thing I do know, he was a good father. Whatever he did it after hours. Don't make it right, but it makes it real. And that's what that is. And do not give up on your children. Just don't give up on your children. It hurts. It's a long process. It's scary. But God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of sound mind. And that's what you have to do. Turn a deaf ear to fear. And then you got to walk by faith, not by sight. Because I'm telling you, looking at life, that's all I see. Every time I pull up my son's case, life.